Kimberly Nicole Foster, we all know she's been a very successful in her own right. I think it has her own separate publication for Harriet. She's an open Black feminist. And again, I appreciate her honesty. She's about to tell us why her, as a Black educated woman, how she would not consider dating a blue collar Black man. And of course, we know it's a Black man because she's openly said that her preference is Black men. So we're going to play it and then we'll break it down.
Somebody asked me, who would you date? Would you date blue collar? And I said, I would date somebody who makes less money than me, but I probably would not date somebody who is blue collar.
Again, y'all heard that. She'd date somebody who made less money than her, but she would not date blue collar. Nope, can't do it, not doing it.
And they said, well, why? Why not? This is a real issue that I've never seen people really reckon with. So somebody weeks ago asked me, okay, who would you date? This person, would you date blue collar? Would you not? And I said, I would date somebody who makes less money than me, but I probably would not date somebody who is blue collar. I do date men who have college degrees. And they said, well, why? Why not? And this is my real response. And this is a real issue that I've never seen people really reckon with. Because
so again, shout out to her for being honest. Let me just say that. Shout out to her for being completely and totally honest. Because y'all heard the first part of the show, right? Where a lot of women were pretending that this doesn't happen. Right? They're pretending like there aren't women out there who specifically are like, I'm not dating blue collar men. I'm not overlooking. Like they're pretending that this is just some crazy thing that I made up. So shout out to her, for Kimberly Nicole Foster, for being honest about why she's not dating blue collar men. We're going to now see why. Let's get into it.
I am a Black woman who has access to so many upper middle class, above average earning Black women. And I see how they've navigated their romantic lives. And this is different generations, different nationalities, different ethnicities, all Black women. And so many of them have, particularly older women, had no, college degree requirement, honestly, because if you're a certain age, you can't really have a college degree requirement and the pool just is not there. Had no income requirement and partnered these men, married these men, and the results were disastrous. The class difference, the resentment that comes from that is absolutely disastrous. Something that Kevin Samuels nor the rest of these men are really contending with is what happens when there is a large class difference, not just financial, like socioeconomic difference, but class difference, meaning what do you do for fun?
Okay, so you notice how she mentioned resentment. Notice how she mentioned the amount of resentment that comes from that. Who do you think in that dynamic is going to be more resentful? If you are say you are a upper middle class Black woman, you're going to these different corporate parties, you're hobnobbing with other women and going and having wine tasting, having that kind of experience, the mixers, the lounge, that's your experience, right? You're essentially aspiring for this more nice, luxurious, hypergamous, soft lifestyle. That is your experience. And you're with a man who's a blue collar worker. He may be making really, really good money, but the nature of being a blue collar, you may be a little more rough and gruff. You're not necessarily thinking about all the time the soft life. You know what I mean? Like that's not, you're making good money, you're stable, but you're running in different social circles. Who in that dynamic do you think is actually going to be more resentful? The one who was aspiring to a certain class, to a certain hypergamous elite setup, elite social circle, or the one who was just happy making money, happy doing what he's doing? The class doesn't matter to him as long as he's able to pay bills. Who do you think in that setup is going to be more resentful? Without her saying it, I think we can probably assume that it's going to be the women. The women who are aspiring, again, for an elite kind of social status, they're the ones who are going to be resentful that the men that they're with do not reflect that social status that they are aspiring to maintain. It's not the men. It is the women. And again, I'm not making this stuff up. What I just showed with you, what I showed to you a few minutes previous to this, that data from the book, The Dating Divide, from the two sociologists showed that yes, college-educated women will absolutely filter out other men who are not college-educated. Notice they did not say that for college-educated men. They said college-educated women will absolutely filter out men who do not have college degrees from their dating pool. Women do this. So again, who of that setup, if it is a woman with a college degree who's in a upper middle class setup and she's dating somebody who maybe makes as much money, but is in a different social, is maybe considered blue collar and doesn't have the same class aspirations, who do you think of the two is going to be more resentful? Anyways, let's continue with this one. Okay.
Who do you hang out with? What books do you read? What newspaper? Like, the idea that that is just going to be so easy for both parties to surmount, it's crazy. I have never seen that happen. What I have seen happen is women saying, oh, that does not matter. We can be partnered. And the men realizing, oh, I cannot fucking handle this.
So wait, what? I was following her until it became the men's fault. I'm like, what? Now listen. Now there are scenarios out there where men are uncomfortable if the woman makes more money. I'm not going to say that does not exist, but in my experience, right, what I've observed, and even what I've taught, no, because I know couples where the woman makes more money. I know that to this day, and they're happily married. A primary issue when there is a big difference in either money being made, class, or whatever, a big issue can become if there is a sense of disrespect that comes from it. Take it for an example, the Ebony K. Williams. We just had that conversation earlier, right? We were looking at her stuff and she was talking to blue collar men and she was talking down to them. She was very condescending. She was incredibly condescending, and she was saying as if she was trying to, she was trying to pep talk them and trying to encourage them. But really, if you listen to her tone, what she was saying, it was incredibly condescending. Y'all the same men that probably got C's and D's. Y'all just average below average. Y'all can't do better. Like, she was condescending. And so again, from what I've observed and what I think really goes on is anytime there's this, you have the college educated woman who's with a blue collar man, it doesn't work if there's not a sense of respect. If the woman with the college degree looks down on the man for whatever reason, because maybe he's not a social class, because he doesn't know how to get along at a corporate circle as much. Maybe he chews his, eats food with his mouth open. Maybe he doesn't have those social cues. Maybe he's a little rough around the edges, right? He feels uncomfortable playing bocce ball. Maybe that is a little different. And to me, honestly, those are minor differences. If you really love somebody, you guys love each other, and there's a willingness to open and learn and to learn how to engage in the different circles, then that's not a big deal. You go into a company party and y'all are playing bocce ball. Okay, you can put on a collared shirt. You can put on a suit. Like, if somebody is really interested in somebody else's life and you guys are serious about loving one another and wanting to get along, you can learn how to get along at a corporate party. It's not a huge deal. But the issue becomes when there's the resentment, when there's he's not on the social class that I aspire to, and you feel like internally that you settled. In my opinion, that is where the breakdown can come down. It's not necessarily so much the class, I think, as much as it is, what does that represent? And if that woman is really about class aspirations, if the prestige really truly matters to her, if it really truly matters to her that she's going to be able to brag on her friends about her husband, if that is a level of importance, it can be somewhat a sense of embarrassment to her. It can be a sense of resentment. Even if he's making that money, even if he's keeping things together, even if whatever, if he's not able to give her the kind of prestige that she desires, that's where I think the breakdown comes from. Says it's all a trap. Without the money, class, or status, she treats all men blue, white collar like crap. The degree is just another virtue signal. No, interesting. Absolutely interesting. Yeah, and that's not that's a good point. That is not to assume just because you have a college degree does not mean you're also not going to be disrespected, because you can't. If you're with a woman who just is misandrous completely, um, it don't matter. You could have 3 degrees. Right, and you still about to be getting disrespect because she don't like you. But again, that's what's not being talked about here. She's talking about resentment. Most men aren't sitting around resentful at the fact that, oh wow, my wife is in a higher social class. Like, men don't really care like that. As long as she looks good and is nice and can cook a good meal, it don't really matter to the dude. It really don't matter. The issue becomes if you start looking down on him, and if you start using your class as a way to pretend like you're better and be uppity and then be condescending, as Ebony K. Williams was to blue collar men. That's where the issue and the resentment comes from. So let's continue.
There is no attention paid to the resentment from men when they are on the lower class and they have to look up to their female partner financially and socioeconomically. And there's all of these things that you don't know, experiences that you have to learn. I have seen that firsthand.
Again, I don't disagree with what she's saying. What is not being added to that context is the resentment because she's in certain circles, or is the resentment because she is using her access to, quite frankly, different spaces that in some instances may even promote the white supremacy that these Black women say they're trying to fight against, right? In some instances that promote certain ideas like feminism, that things that have literally be antithetical to the Black male experience. Is he really jealous of that, or is he jealous that they're using that access to those spaces as a way to demonize and as a way to basically shame men, to say you're not good enough? What is it? Is it the aspiration for social status, or is it the fact that you're using your current position to demonize and demean and talk down all these men and shame these men? I think it's the latter. Because again, if these blue collar men who aspired to this particular social class, then they probably wouldn't be blue collar. They wouldn't be trade skillmen. They actually would have gone in those circles. They would have tried to get into certain colleges and get into fraternities, and they would have lived the life. They would have made decisions that would have shown that level of social status was of value and importance to them. But the very nature that these men maybe chose to do jobs that, again, they're working with their hands, they're having freedom, they're not connected to some of these different systems, shows me that by nature, a lot of these dudes probably don't care. They don't really care that you can go, again, like I said, to a company party and play bocce ball and drink champagne. They probably don't really care. It's like, who cares? Like, as long as I can pay my bills. And so I think that's what's being missed from this conversation. It's not necessarily that they have access to stuff. A lot of the dudes don't care. It's how are you using that access to treat your man? Are you disrespecting him? Are you demeaning him? Are you talking down on him? Are you acting like you're better than him? Or are you still seeing him as someone to be respected? Are you still honoring him as your man? So I think that is where I think that's what's being missed from the conversation.
And I'm not saying that, trying not to yell anymore in the new microphone. I'm not saying that these men don't deserve love, care, and affection partnership. I am saying that because I have seen the deep resentment those kinds of dynamics create, that I would not just suggest anybody just do that willy-nilly. Like it's nothing. Like, oh, who cares? It's just money. No.
But so again, I don't necessarily disagree with her assessment that there can be resentment created. Where I disagree is the fact that she's making it out to be that the men are the ones who get resentful, and that it's not perhaps on both sides, or even more specifically, why these men get resentful. Okay, let's say that it's true. Let's say that it is true that these men get resentful, that these women have social status. Why? Because like I mentioned, for a lot of these men, if social status was a prime level of importance, they probably would have actually gone to college. They probably actually would have aspired to get into those situations. There are men out there who are smart, who are very logical, who specifically chose not to go into college because they didn't want to have to deal with those specific systems, because they didn't want to have to get into college debt, because that didn't matter to them. They wanted to have the freedom of their schedule. They wanted to make money. They wanted to be free of some of that stuff. They didn't want to have to deal with the indoctrination. So again, for a lot of blue collar men, social status is not necessarily an aspirational goal for them, because if it was, they probably would have went to college, or they would have chosen particular jobs that would have put them in that bracket. So of the two people in that dynamic, the men and the woman, who are the ones who actually desire the social aspiration? Is it the women who have a proven record of showing that they specifically filter blue collar men, non-college educated men out of their dating because they want men who are on their social status or higher? Is it them who are going to be resentful, or is it the men who don't really care about the social status? Again, I think it's the women in many instances. And again, a lot of the breakdown, I don't think it's class as much as it is the respect. Can a woman who is with a man of a different class, can she respect him in the way that he needs to be? And a lot of times when I have seen or heard of men who they do start to feel resentful, or they do start to have issues with women who make a lot more money, that dynamic is being left out of the conversation. The way that she's treating him, whether or not he still feels like she's respecting him, treating him like a man, treating him like he deserves respect, that he needs respect. That's the missing link. And again, I'm not saying there aren't men out there who don't by nature feel uncomfortable with women who make money. I'm sure that does exist on some level. But for a lot of men, it's not the money as much as it is, what does that money and what does that college degree mean for how she's going to treat me? And if her college degree means she's going to look down on me and say that I just was a CD student, and she's going to forever see me as her third or fourth choice and be resentful, I don't want that disrespect. And so I think that's the missing link from her analysis. That's the missing link. So anyways, guys, that is what I wanted to break down.